There is a spiritual alchemy that few men know about. The ability to transform pure sexual energy into transcendent spiritual power. This is not just sublimation, it is a transmutation that elevates man to states of consciousness that others consider mystical or impossible. While most men waste their most sacred life force on fleeting pleasures, becoming spiritually drained, disconnected from the divine, and lost in superficial materialism, a hidden tradition teaches the way. On the contrary, men who have learned to convert their sexual energy into fuel for a true spiritual awakening. The most advanced spiritual science has demonstrated that sexual energy is not just a biological impulse, but a pure spiritual force. By learning to consciously transmute it, you not only develop extraordinary inner powers, but also establish a direct connection with the higher dimensions of reality. You become a channel for cosmic forces. In the next few minutes, you will discover the precise method for transforming sexual energy into spiritual power. How can you channel this primordial force to awaken latent spiritual abilities, develop transcendent intuition, and establish communication with your higher self? This is not an esoteric theory, but a concrete spiritual technology. If you feel your spiritual life is stagnating, if you are seeking a true connection with the sacred, consider yourself a gateway to higher dimensions of existence. Persevere to the end. What depth psychology has taught about spiritual transmutation can transform you from a simple seeker to an accomplished mystic, from a material human being to an awakened spiritual being. Depth psychology has completely revolutionized our understanding of sexual energy by discovering that it is not only a reproductive force, but the purest manifestation of spiritual energy on the physical plane. After decades of research in alchemy, mysticism, and analysis of the unconscious, it has been revealed that libido is literally a sacred fire waiting to be transmuted. This research revealed that all authentic spiritual traditions, from Hindu Tantra to Christian alchemy, recognize sexual energy as the raw material of spiritual transformation. The ancients did not view sexuality and spirituality as opposites, but rather as aspects of the same cosmic force, operating at different frequencies. The fundamental discovery was that when men learn to consciously conserve and redirect their sexual energy, something extraordinary happens. This force automatically transforms into spiritual power. It's not about repressing or denying sexuality. It's about elevating this energy to its most refined and powerful form. Medieval alchemists codified this process as solvet coagula, which means to dissolve and coagulate. Pure sexual energy dissolves from its primal form and coagulates into pure spiritual substance. What they called transforming lead into gold was a perfect metaphor for converting sexual energy into spiritual light. This conceptual revolution explains why the great mystics, saints, and sages of history practiced a form of energy conservation. This wasn't moralism, it was a spiritual technology. They understood that preserved sexual energy becomes a direct fuel for higher states of consciousness. Modern research confirms that sexual energy contains unique vibrational frequencies that, when preserved, activate the dormant spiritual centers of the human body. The upper chakras, the pelvic gland, and the subtle energy channels respond directly to transmuted sexual energy. The most revolutionary aspect of this discovery is the understanding that every man possesses a natural alchemical laboratory within himself. His sexual glands are not just reproductive organs, they are factories of spiritual energy. When this energy is conserved rather than wasted, a process of inner transformation automatically begins. This transmutation is not only individual but cosmic. By raising your sexual energy to spiritual levels, you connect with universal forces that operate beyond the material world, thus consciously contributing to the spiritual evolution of humanity. Those who master this inner alchemy not only develop personal spiritual powers, but also become instruments for manifesting the sacred in the physical world. Their presence transmits a spiritual frequency that automatically elevates the consciousness of those around them. This is the truly great work of the alchemists, the transformation of the ordinary man into a spiritual being, achieved through the conscious transmutation of his most primitive energy into a more transcendent power. It is the direct path to spiritual awakening, independent of religions, dogmas, or external systems. transmuted sexual energy becomes a bridge between worlds, connecting the physical dimension to the spiritual spheres, the human personality to the divine essence, and individual consciousness to the universal consciousness. The process of transforming sexual energy into spiritual power is based on mysterious principles that material science is only beginning to understand. This transmutation isn't just a redirection of energy. It's a true alchemy, transforming energetic substance from one frequency to another. When you consciously hold on to sexual energy, something fascinating happens in your subtle energy system. The force that normally flows downward and outward through the sexual organs begins to rise up through the spine, activating spiritual centers that remain latent in most people. The ancient yogis described this process precisely as the awakening of the Kundalini, the fiery serpent that lies dormant at the base of the spine and, when awakened by stored sexual energy, spreads into the upper chakras, activating extraordinary spiritual abilities. This is not mythology, but an accurate description of a real energetic phenomenon. During this ascension, sexual energy is purified and refined in each energy center it passes through. In the second chakra, pure sexual energy begins its transformation. In the third, it develops personal spiritual power. In the fourth, it transforms into universal love. In the fifth, it becomes a transcendent creative power. Upon reaching the sixth chakra, the center of spiritual intuition, the transmuted sexual energy activates abilities that others consider supernatural: clairvoyance, telepathy, spiritual vision, and communication with higher dimensions. What was an impulse, primordial energy transforms into cosmic perception. In the seventh chakra, the fully transmuted energy establishes a direct connection with universal consciousness. Humanity experiences what mystics call divine union, a state where individuality temporarily dissolves into infinite cosmic consciousness. This transmutation process also activates the pineal gland, the third eye, which produces natural DMT and other compounds that promote transcendental spiritual experiences. The preserved sexual energy directly stimulates this sacred gland to function at its peak. The transformation is not only energetic but also biochemical. Sexual preservation optimizes the production of neurotransmitters associated with spiritual states: serotonin for inner peace, dopamine for spiritual ecstasy, and endorphins for natural bliss. Your body becomes a natural pharmacy of spiritual substances. The most mysterious aspect of this transmutation lies in how it connects the practitioner to what might be called the spiritual morphogenetic field, an invisible network of consciousness that connects all awakened beings. Through transmuted sexual energy, this field of collective wisdom is accessed. This connection explains why men who undergo spiritual transmutation often receive insights, revelations, and knowledge they have not acquired through conventional study. The intensification of sexual energy sensitizes them to informational frequencies that operate beyond the five physical senses. Transmutation also develops what esoteric traditions call the spiritual body, a subtle energetic vehicle that allows consciousness to operate independently of the physical body. This spiritual body, fueled by refined sexual energy, becomes an instrument for exploring the non-physical dimensions of reality. The end result of this inner alchemy is the birth of a new type of human being, evolving simultaneously in the material and spiritual worlds, serving as a conscious bridge between the dimensions of existence. Transforming sexual energy into spiritual power requires a specific and sacred method, preserved over the centuries thanks to the deepest esoteric traditions. It is not a random process, but a precise spiritual discipline that must be approached with reverence and total dedication. The first step is purification, both physical and mental. For at least 40 days, completely eliminate all ejaculation, whether from sexual intercourse, masturbation, or wet dreams. This period of purification allows sexual energy to accumulate and begin its natural ascent through the spiritual centers. At the same time, cleanse your mind of all sexual content. Fantasies, lustful thoughts, and sexual stimuli must be completely eliminated. This mental purification is crucial because sexual thoughts disperse subtle energy before it can be transmuted. Think of your mind as a sacred temple that must remain pure. The second step involves specific breathing practices that facilitate energetic ascension. The fundamental technique is spinal breathing. Inhale slowly, visualizing golden energy rising from the base of your spine to the crown of your head. Exhale, visualizing this energy expanding throughout your being. Practice this breathing for 20 to 30 minutes daily. During these sessions, keep your sacred intention clear. You are not just moving energy, but transmuting sexual force into spiritual light. This conscious intention is the catalyst that transforms mechanical exercise into true alchemy. The third step is transmutation meditation. Sit upright, focus on the sexual center at the base of the spine, and gently direct the accumulated sexual energy upward through the chakras. Do not force it. Allow the energy to ignite naturally, like burning steam rising in a vertical tube. As the energy reaches each chakra, pause and allow the energy center to absorb and refine this force. Visualize how the energy purifies and intensifies with each pause, gradually shifting from a deep, sensual red to a brilliant, spiritual gold, and then to a radiant, transcendent white. The fourth step is integration through spiritual service. The transmuted energy must be directed toward higher goals, healing others, creating inspired art, consciousness work, or any activity that raises the collective vibration. Accumulated spiritual energy that is not used constructively can lead to imbalances. During this process, keep a spiritual journal in which you record any unusual experiences, perceptions, visions, or phenomena. Transmutation often produces experiences that transcend ordinary reality. Documenting them allows these revelations to be integrated into normal consciousness. Patience is essential. True transmutation can take months or even years. Each cycle of preservation and transmutation adds levels of spiritual refinement, gradually developing abilities that appear miraculous to outside observers. The most sacred aspect of this method is understanding that you are participating in a cosmic mystery, the transformation of matter into spirit, of density into light, of human limitations into divine potential. Consider each practice as a sacred ritual of communion with higher powers. Remember that this is not only about personal development, but also about serving the spiritual evolution of humanity. Each person who undergoes this transmutation contributes to the elevation of collective consciousness. Throughout history, extraordinary men have mastered the art of transforming sexual energy into spiritual power. These sacred warriors were not mere isolated mystics, but accomplished beings who demonstrated through their lives what can be accomplished by mastering this inner alchemy. Saint Francis of Assisi represents a perfect example of Christian transmutation. His rigorous practice of celibacy was not a form of repression, but a conscious channeling of sexual energy toward a mystical union with the divine. The stigmata he received, his ability to communicate with animals, and his spiritual ecstasies were direct manifestations of sexual energy, completely transmuted into spiritual power. In Eastern tradition, masters like Ramakrishna achieved extraordinary levels of realization through absolute Brahman. His sexual energy, fully conserved and transmuted, manifested in states of samadhi so intense that he often lost consciousness of the physical world for hours, absorbed in divine ecstasy. The mysterious alchemist known as the Count of Saint-Germain exemplifies the Hermetic tradition of transmutation. Historical witnesses report that he appeared to remain timeless for decades, possessed supernatural knowledge, and wielded powers suggesting absolute mastery of spiritual forces through secret energy practices. Milarepa, the great Tibetan yogi, spent years in caves practicing energy transmutation. Her sexual energy, preserved and refined, allowed her to develop abilities such as supernatural resistance to cold, clairvoyance, and the ability to teach through direct energy transmission. Her disciples reported that her mere presence induced elevated spiritual states in the Maransa. Yogananda, a modern master of animal husbandry and yoga, specifically taught the transmutation of sexual energy. He demonstrated how preserved life energy could be channeled to awaken cosmic consciousness. His disciples witnessed extraordinary phenomena during his meditations, such as levitation and the materialization of celestial perfumes. In the Sufi tradition, masters like Rumi channeled sexual energy into poetic ecstasies that directly touched the spiritual hearts of their listeners. His writings were not merely literary, but encoded energetic transmissions that continue to awaken spiritual experiences in readers centuries later. Even contemporary figures like Daido Krishnamurti exhibited signs of advanced energetic transmutation. His presence had a transformative power that induced altered states of consciousness in his audience. His mere presence was said to provoke profound spiritual revelations. All of these warrior saints shared common characteristics: a magnetic presence, transcending normal personality, seemingly supernatural intuitive abilities, extraordinary physical stamina, and the ability to arouse spiritual experiences in others simply by their presence. The most important aspect of these examples is to demonstrate that energy transmutation is not an abstract theory, but a concrete reality producing measurable results. These men were not biologically different. They simply mastered a spiritual technology accessible to any dedicated person. Their legacy continues to influence spiritual seekers because transmuted energy possesses a timeless quality. By refining sexual energy into pure spiritual essence, something is created that transcends physical limitations and continues to radiate through the subtle dimensions of reality. Studying these figures reveals that the potential for radical transformation through energetic transmutation is not the preserve of a privileged few, but a spiritual legacy accessible to anyone willing to pay the price of total discipline. The transformation of sexual energy into spiritual power occurs through a sophisticated energy system that runs parallel to the physical body. This subtle anatomy, precisely mapped by esoteric traditions, is where the true alchemy of spiritual transmutation occurs. The chakra system forms the backbone of this transformation. Each energy center has a specific vibrational frequency and a unique function in the process of spiritual refinement. As sexual energy rises through these centers, it is purified and gradually rises from material density to pure spiritual light. The first chakra, located at the base of the spine, is where sexual energy is stored in its pure state. This is Daline's latent energy, spiritual power in its primal form waiting to be awakened. Sexual restraint creates an energetic pressure that eventually forces this power to ignite. When the energy reaches the second chakra, in the sacral region, the first phase of transmutation begins. Pure sexual force begins to refine, losing its material density, and acquire more subtle qualities. Practitioners often feel intense heat or electrical sensations in this region during active transmutation. In the third chakra, located in the solar plexus, transmuted sexual energy is transformed into personal spiritual power. This center governs willpower and determination, qualities essential for maintaining advanced spiritual practices. Refined sexual energy fosters unwavering discipline. The fourth chakra, in the center of the chest, is the site of the deepest transformation. Ascending sexual energy transforms into universal love, not a personal emotion, but a cosmic frequency of compassion that connects the practitioner to all life. Many mystics experience profound ecstasies when the energy reaches this center. In the fifth chakra, at the throat, transmuted energy manifests as transcendent creative power. The words spoken by a person with refined sexual energy convey a spiritual force capable of transforming the consciousness of those who hear them. This is the power of mantras, effective prayers, and inspired teachings. The sixth chakra, between the eyebrows, is where fully transmuted sexual energy activates spiritual vision. The pineal gland, stimulated by refined energy, produces substances that facilitate the perception of non-physical dimensions. Clairvoyance, transcendante intuition, and telepathic communication arise naturally. In the seventh chakra, at the crown of the head, fully purified sexual energy establishes a direct connection with universal consciousness. This is the portal through which individual consciousness temporarily merges with the cosmic mind. Experiences of unity, direct revelations, and intuitive knowledge flow through this center. In addition to the main chakras, smaller energy centers and subtle channels distribute the transmuted energy throughout the system. Acupuncture meridians, yoga nades, and alchemical circuits contribute to this refined circulation of spiritual life force. The pineal gland deserves special attention because it is the seat of the soul and responds directly to transmuted sexual energy. When properly stimulated by refined energy, It produces endogenous DMT and other compounds that promote authentic mystical experiences. This subtle energy system explains why sexual transmutation produces seemingly supernatural phenomena. These are not miracles, but rather the natural results of a spiritual technology, which operates through an energetic anatomy that material science is only beginning to explore. Understanding this occult science allows for the most intelligent and effective approach to energy: transmutation. When a person fully masters the art of transforming sexual energy into spiritual power, they develop abilities that transcend ordinary human limitations. These are not supernatural powers in the fantastic sense of the word, but rather natural expressions of spiritual potential that emerge when life energy is refined to its purest form. The first power to manifest is transcendent intuition. The transmuted person develops the ability to directly know truths that others must discover through study or experience. This intuition is not divination, but a direct connection with the universal field of consciousness, where all information exists simultaneously. True clairvoyance emerges when refined sexual energy fully activates the third eye. Vision of distant events, perception of the human aura, and the ability to pierce superficial appearances to perceive hidden realities become natural. The veil between the physical world and the subtle dimensions becomes transparent. Spiritual healing power develops as transmuted energy flows through the higher centers. The hands of the realized person emit frequencies capable of rebalancing the disturbed energy systems of others. This is not healing through techniques, but rather a direct transmission of harmony through a purified presence. Telepathic communication becomes possible when heightened. Sexual energy establishes direct connections between minds. Thoughts and feelings can be transmitted without words, especially between people of similar spiritual attunement. This communication operates through vibrational frequencies that transcend physical language. An irresistible spiritual magnetism develops as the transmuted energy radiates through the auric field. People are naturally attracted to the presence of a realized person, not by their personal charisma, but by the spiritual harmony they exude. Their proximity automatically raises the vibration of others. The ability to materialize subtle substances manifests in advanced stages. Celestial fragrances, inexplicable lights, and other physical manifestations of spiritual energy may spontaneously arise around the realized practitioner. These are not tricks, but a natural overflow of concentrated spiritual energy. Extraordinary physical endurance emerges when life energy is conserved and refined rather than wasted. The body, fueled by pure spiritual energy, develops a resilience that transcends normal biological limits. Sleeping less, eating less, and resisting disease become natural. The transformative power of awareness through presence expands as the human energy field transmutes, becoming a tool for spiritual awakening. Simply being near her can induce meditative states, spiritual insights, and transcendental experiences in others. Her refined energy acts as a catalyst for awakening. Access to cosmic memories becomes possible when fully transmuted sexual energy establishes a connection with the world archives, the universal information field where all experiences are stored. Knowledge of past lives, historical events, and universal truths becomes accessible. The ability to act consciously outside the physical body develops as the transmuted energy builds a spiritual body strong enough to sustain consciousness independently. Astral travel, exploration of non-physical dimensions, and communication with beings from other realms become direct experiences. The deepest power lies in establishing a permanent union with the higher self, the divine aspect of individual consciousness. This union transcends temporary mystical experiences and establishes a permanent state of cosmic consciousness, where the boundaries between the individual and the universal blur. These powers emerge naturally when sexual energy is fully transmuted. They are not goals to be achieved, but the inevitable consequences of total spiritual refinement. The final stage in the transmutation of sexual energy into spiritual power is what mystical traditions call divine union, a state where individual consciousness fully merges with universal consciousness. This is not simply a supreme mystical experience, but a permanent transformation that fundamentally redefines the nature of human existence. In this transcendent state, sexual energy is no longer a separate force requiring transmutation. It has become inseparable from cosmic consciousness itself. The realized human being operates from an energetic source that is both personal and universal, finite and infinite, human and divine. Complete transformation dissolves the boundaries between the material and spiritual worlds. The accomplished practitioner lives simultaneously in the physical dimension and the spiritual spheres, serving as a conscious bridge between the levels of reality. Their existence becomes a living demonstration that the separation between matter and spirit is an illusion. Unity consciousness permeates every aspect of experience. The sense of individual separateness dissolves into the awareness of universal interdependence. Every breath, every heartbeat, every thought becomes an expression of the same cosmic intelligence that animates the stars and governs galactic evolution. Transcendent love replaces all personal emotions. It is not a feeling directed toward specific objects, but a constant radiance of universal compassion that encompasses all life. This love has no opposite, for it arises not from personal preferences, but from the fundamental nature of enlightened reality. Direct wisdom replaces acquired knowledge. Universal truths are instantly known through fusion with the cosmic mind that contains all information. Questions about the purpose of life, the nature of reality, and human destiny are answered through direct knowledge, not intellectual speculation. Unlimited creative power manifests itself according to individual will, in perfect harmony with the universal will. Personal desires are replaced by cosmic inspiration, which seeks expression through the purified human instrument. Creations arise spontaneously, expressions of divine intelligence. Unconditional peace is established as the natural state of being. It is not an absence of activity, but the presence of a fundamental harmony unaltered by external circumstances. This peace transcends mental understanding, for it arises from the direct understanding of the indestructibility of the essence of being. Spontaneous service becomes a natural expression of divine union. Universal compassion automatically manifests itself through action, aimed at alleviating suffering and raising consciousness. The realized person becomes an instrument through which divine love operates in the physical world. Spiritual immortality is recognized as a present reality, not a future promise. Consciousness is experienced as an eternal essence that transcends the birth and death of the physical body. The fear of death dissipates with the understanding that true identity was never born and can never die. This divine union does not mark the end of spiritual evolution, but the beginning of conscious cosmic service. The fully realized human being becomes a collaborator in universal evolution, working across multiple dimensions to facilitate the awakening of other consciousnesses. The most mysterious aspect of this transcendence is that it preserves unique individuality while dissolving the sense of separateness. The human personality becomes a perfect expression of the divine essence, retaining its distinctive characteristics while operating from universal consciousness. This is the supreme promise of energetic transmutation, not the annihilation of the human being, but its complete divinization through perfect alignment with the cosmic source of all existence. You now know the most sacred secret that spiritual traditions have preserved through the centuries. The transmutation of sexual energy into spiritual power is not just a personal development technique, it is the direct path to authentic spiritual awakening and divine union. But knowledge without practice is pure intellectual curiosity. You can memorize all the methods, understand all the concepts, and still remain spiritually asleep if you lack the courage to apply this sacred alchemy to your life. The difference between ordinary spiritual seekers and accomplished saints lies not in luck or a special gift, but in the discipline required to consciously transform the most primal force into a more transcendent power. While others waste their sacred energy on worldly pleasures, you can choose the path of spiritual transmutation. Your journey to spiritual awakening can begin today. Start with 40 days of total self-preservation. Combine this with transmutative breathing practices and maintain a constant sacred intention. This is an opportunity to discover dimensions of reality that few human beings know. If this spiritual knowledge resonates with your inner quest, subscribe to the channel for more revelations on masculine spiritual alchemy. Commentaire sacred transmutation. If you'd like to apply these methods of spiritual elevation and explore our other videos on consciousness awakening and esoteric wisdom, this channel is for men who value spiritual transcendence over superficial materialism.